I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but one of the things that I've been noticing is the juxtaposition between the joy and beauty and wonder of the essential self, of kind of the core energy coming out within, and the absolute misery and pain and difficulty of the little boxes that consciousness gets stuck in. And so I wanted to present a paradigm for working with this paradox of essential bliss and loneliness, horror, nightmare, or beauty and wonder. And in the paradigm, there's a couple of different distinctions in identity or classification of self. And so in the center, we have the core essence, the core energy. And this, I think, is the part of any system that is connected with the whole. If we were talking about the cell, a cell in the body of which we are all a part in a larger ecological framework, this might be the blood that nourishes and feeds the cell from the larger self, from the body. And so at the core, we have energy. And we have an ego, a sense of boundary, a sense of a cell, a distinct cell to hold that energy, to receive that energy, to integrate that energy, and to express that energy. And as we move into the expressions of that core energy, we have identities. And an identity is a distinct pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, and doing. So, for example, a party identity is a distinct pattern of the way that we think, feel, talk, and behave at a given type of party location. A work identity is a very different set of thoughts, feelings, actions, and words in a work or professional environment. A lover identity, again, a very different set, a distinct pattern within the self. It's all us. We've got this core energy dividing into these different identities, different distinct parts of how we are in different situations as a recognizable pattern. And you know it's a recognizable pattern because you feel this is me at a party, this is me at work. And other people look and say, oh yeah, that's them being themselves at work. And so you have the identity. Now, within a given identity, you have a whole different set of probability fields. You have you have one probability field or equation when you're in your work identity and a very difficult and angry customer comes into the room and demands this and asks that. You have a probability of your work identity dealing with that. You have another probability of a very nice customer comes in, of being promoted, of being fired. You have this range of possible me's in each of the identities. And, depending on the momentum of different things set in place, depending on our positioning, how we structure ourselves in these different probabilities, we experience more or less of one type of thing happening. And that's what I'm calling an equation. An equation is how this source energy in a given context is combined, adjusted, manipulated, subtracted from, multiplied, combined with this to create a given outcome. And it's very much like a chef. If you imagine the essence of raw nutrients, going back to that blood analogy, kind of oozing out from the essential self into the physical ego of a given individual. And then that nutrient is being shared in different identities, and we do different things with it. It's like this energy is like a fridge filled with stuff. And if we take the carrots and peel them and keep them raw and soak them in water so they're really crisp and combine them with cabbage and stuff, you get one taste. You get one set of dishes. If you take the carrot and you cook it until it's complete pulp, you get another taste, another outcome. If you grate it when it's cool and fresh rather than chop it, this a different taste. Every different permutation of a probability is a different dish. And it's this awareness of what's called chemistry or cooking, the awareness of how it is that different people's energies predispose to different things, meaning we have our beliefs and stuff that guide us to look and validate those beliefs in some directions and ignore the dissenting evidence, because no belief has 100% support in the external reality. For every belief, there's certain evidence that backs it up, and then there's other evidence that seems to shed doubt on it. And so, the materialist can find evidence that everything is material and everything else is delusion, and the transcendental philosophers can find evidence that transcendence is all around us. And so, where do you look? Do you read the writings of Edgar Cayce and Seth and Lazarus and read about miracles, or do you look at the scientific journals and read the data, which is carefully filters out? They don't publish information that is contrary to the dogma that is science. And so you can find supporting or conflicting beliefs, and that's why everyone gets to believe what they want to believe and point to that which supports their belief. Obviously, it's a little harder to believe some things than others. Apples keep falling to the ground, and so gravity is a relatively easy thing to believe in. And people don't seem to fly all that often. So people flying with flapping their hands, harder to believe in. But you can still find some people who have hope because this could suggest that. There is still evidence that it could be in the realm of some kind of an odd phenomena happening from time to time. Now, it's these equations that are so interesting because we all have the same source energy. Now, the shape of our individual egos has a lot to do with the environment that shaped those egos. There's a culture, there's a time period, there's a sense of technology in place around any given human ego. And then the identities that we develop often tend to be quite cultural. Why did I reference parties? Well, our culture has a party identity. Our culture doesn't have a transcendent teaching identity. Meaning, if you ask the average person, what's your identity as a transcendent sacred teacher? They're like, what are you talking about? I don't have that identity. Meaning there is no place in our culture that we go to speak, feel, think, and act as transcendent teachers. So we don't know who we are as transcendent teachers because there's no slot where you grow up around transcendent teachers and say, oh, that's the me that could be a transcendent teacher. I'd like to develop that. And so cultures have their little blocks of standard identities, standard issued identities. You should have an education identity. You should have a professional identity. You should have a party cocktail identity, a golfing identity perhaps, because those are the slots open. But we can, of course, create our own identities as microclimates. Just takes two people and we say we're going to do this together and develop this part of ourselves together. Now we have an innovative identity. We have a more culturally diverse identity. We're creating cultural diversity with this identity, through language, through repeated habits. way out at the end here, one of the important things to understand with these mathematical equations that are engaged with as an identity in a given environment with a given person is that on some level they are zero-sum games. Meaning, if you combine flour and liquid arsenic and an egg and fry, and whip it for 2 minutes with a whisker like this, and then, and you have 1 cup of arsenic and half a cup of flour and 2 eggs and some salt, and you mix it up, it does create a set result, meaning everyone who eats those pancakes dies. And that's what happens when you combine arsenic and this and that and the other. And very similarly, when you combine a sense of humor, a sense of grace, a sense of wonder, etc., with 2 people in this way, and they smile like this, then there is a chemistry. There is a dish that is created called joy, called happiness, called expansiveness. When you combine people like this, they get bored and depressed. When you combine people and do this and say this and do this, they kill themselves in suicidal despair. When you do this and this and this, they become very happy. And so there are these equations that are our daily lives, that are the cult's probability field, the culture's probability field. Exists by combining all of the actions, and they're like ingredients. All of the actions, all the thoughts, all the beliefs, all the feelings, all the habits come together and they create a dish. You say, well, what's the dish? It's a multisensory dish. It's a dish you can see, you can smell, you can hear it. It's a dish that can have impact on you, etc. And that is the physical playground around us. Is constantly giving us feedback. This is what you get when you combine this, 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 and this in this context. This is what you get. And if you don't like it, then you've got to readjust the recipe. Meaning, if you combine a cup of arsenic and combine flour and eggs and salt and serve it, and they still die, and you want them to stop dying, and you mix up another batch of arsenic and like, come on, no one die. You serve it up and they still die. So in order to stop dying, you've got to delete the arsenic and add milk. When you combine any set of variables and they produce a given result, if the variables stay the same, you can statistically predict that result over and over again. And what we're learning is the art of soul soup. We're learning the art of taking this core essential energy out into infinite mathematical equations to learn what you get when you get this, when you combine this, 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 and this, you get this. And this, 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 and this, you get this. And this, 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 and this, and this. So if you want something different, you've got to change the equation. If you want something really different, you have to change the identity. You have to move some things aside and say, here's the space where the transcendent healers gather. Here is the space where this type of thing happens. This is a place where magic occurs. And these are the things that we do to create magic. These are the things we think. These are the things we feel. These are the things that we say, and these are the things that we do. And this is what emerges from that. What changed? What moved around? Does it seem boring or alive? Is reality changing? What's happening? Every identity has this probability field. And the probability field is located and grounded in reality by the recipe and the discipline of cooking. Enjoy.